Hey everybody, I'm Kurt Wilson, your mayor of Roswell, Georgia. It is Tuesday, March the 7th, 2023. I'm here in our office and I'm here with our Director of Finance, Ryan Luckett, and I'm here with our Pro Tem of the city and also the Liaison for Finance, Christine Hall. Christine, thanks for being with us today. And Ryan, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And they don't really know why they're here, except we threw this little presentation on zero-based budgeting on FY2024. So it's March the 7th, and the reason that's important is basically by June 27th, the council will have an adopted budget for FY24. And really, since we got in the office, really for the last year and a half, we brought in the principle and the idea of zero-based budgeting, and underneath Ryan's leadership and Christine's leadership, we have been working on that feverishly. And we're still right in the middle of working on that. There's a lot. It's radical. It's radical for any organization. It's incredibly radical when you're talking about a municipal organization or a government organization. It's much different than the way things traditionally operate. Most budgeting is something we would call as incremental budgeting. Most of you are probably familiar with that if you're in business. There's something that we introduced last year, a principle called priority-based budgeting, and all the new budgeting that we had for the FY23 budgeting, but we didn't have time in January of 2022 to go full scale on zero-based budgeting. So we really began that process in January of 2022, working on the FY24 budget for zero-based budgeting. So you say, okay, so why are we here today? Well, you probably hear us talk a lot about zero-based budgeting, but behind the scenes, all of the department heads, along with the city administrator, and all of the city council members have been working on zero-based budgeting with their respective departments. And it is a very, very wide scope of work that's being done. And there are several things that we're trying to accomplish in zero-based budgeting. One is trying to reimagine how this government works, reimagine the level of services that are provided and how those services are provided, what we can do even better than what we're doing today, maybe some things that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. And obviously that is bringing a finer look into how do we allocate our resources, our capital, and our people. And so zero-based budgeting is allowing every department head to reimagine their responsibilities. And that's a very difficult thing when basically you've been working off incremental budgeting and it's just kind of given to you. The other part of that is that when you do go through the process of zero-based budgeting, it's another way of kind of looking at who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And through that, hopefully the creative process begins to take over, which is part of what everybody is working on. And so Ryan did his zero-based budget a presentation to Christine, myself, and some others a couple weeks ago. Out of that, I just wanted to give you a little glimpse of just a little bit of the process and some of the things that occur during this zero-based budgeting process, and some of the things that we hope to achieve that aren't just about the budget. They're about processes. They're about how we work. And so with that, Christine, I don't know if there's a few words you'd like to kind of say to this.
Yes, I'd just like to follow up on the organization part.
Yes.
So we are an organization. We are organized for a specific purpose, and that is to serve the residents of the city, the taxpayers of the city, in a very competent and responsible manner when it comes to our fiduciary responsibility. So we're not unlike other organizations that are organized, like a bank or a nonprofit or a for-profit. And as every other organization, we want to turn out the most efficient organization and basically the biggest bang for the buck or return on investment. So it doesn't matter. Very often you hear, well, we're a government, so that is why we perhaps can't do something. And that's the paradigm that we are breaking here at the City of Roswell under Mayor's leadership and Director Luckett, who will take us through this very exciting zero-based budget presentation.
Well said, Christine. And so just for all of you there, just like a little glimpse into like one of the hundreds upon hundreds of meetings that we have working on this. And out of this, I want you to kind of see a little bit of the process. So Ryan, with no further ado, this is kind of an ad hoc kind of process. So let's show everybody at home kind of what we're working on.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, as the Mayor mentioned, this is really Finance's opportunity to present its zero-based proposal. And so to get started with this, first off, the thing that's really guiding our department is the vision of the Mayor and Council. And that vision is to be the #1 family community in America. But how does that vision impact the Finance Department? How do we impact that, and what does that mean for us? And so in the next few slides, we'll talk about kind of what that looks like for us in the Finance Department. Over the past 6 months, we in the Finance Department have been going through a strategic planning process. And there are several reasons behind that. One, we want to align our department with the vision of the Mayor and Council. We want to define the department's mission in light of the city's vision. We want to define what the city's core values are and what they mean for us in the Finance Department. We want to complete a SWOT analysis for our department to identify what those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. We want to identify the goals and objectives that will help connect us, the dots between what our current condition is and where we want to go in the future. We want to take those goals and objectives and develop a prioritized plan for the next 3 to 5 years. And then finally, we want to obtain Mayor and Council input and buy-in over the course of this whole process. So this kind of gives you an overall roadmap of where we started, where we're going. We started with developing a mission for our department, defining those core values. Today, we have gotten to the point of completing our SWOT analysis and internal survey of our user departments. And then going forward in the future, we'll be working on those goals and objectives, developing the plan, and executing the plan. So the very first step we went through was developing a mission statement for the Finance Department. We actually took all of our department and divided our department up into different teams. And we met multiple times to work on forming a mission statement for our department that connects us to the vision of the city. So specifically, we asked ourselves these questions. What is it we do today? Who do we serve? What are we trying to accomplish? And what impact do we want to achieve?
You got your little caricature up there, and it's one of the things that we talk about internally. But we haven't gotten to the place that we're fully there, which is he's got this little caricature here. But what this is really about is about creating a meritocracy of ideals, right? Where you really have an agency, an organization where people are truly, to use the overused word, empowered, that the best ideals went out, not the ideals from the highest authority, but the best ideals, no matter where they come from in the organization, that those ideals went out, a true meritocracy of ideals. And I love your caricature out there because that's what you began trying to do with breaking up your team into 6 teams and began throwing things against the wall.
Yes, and it was a great opportunity for our department to really take a step away from the day-to-day hustle and really sit down and think about what it is we do overall, why are we here, who we serve, and to get that feedback from our staff that works with customers, with residents, with our departments on a day-to-day basis. It was a great opportunity. This was just some candid shots here of us, our managers within our department, working through this own process ourselves for the first time. Our managers then went out and worked through this exact same process with the staff in our entire department.
Without getting too much into details, but you can see what's an overall mission here that you're kind of mentioned. So these things, like this is all important stuff because it's kind of the framework of how you're approaching it.
Right. So we, just try to, as we answer these questions, throwing up whatever kind of ideas we could come up with on the board here, and then taking those categories and looking for common denominators across that. And you can see on the picture, we're talking about service, responsible management, financial stewardship, our customers, fiscal responsibility. All those were the kinds of themes that came out of this discussion, both with our managers and throughout the staff that met to review this topic.
But you're talking about serving people exceptionally.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Whether it's an internal customer or a resident.
Exactly.
Or a vendor.
Right.
Or an internal customer.
Yes. And we'll get into that in just a moment, but you're exactly right. One of the unique positions we're in is that we are an internal support department. We have internal customers, but we also serve the residents of the city as well. So once we got to this point, as I mentioned, our teams got into groups, worked through these questions, developing our mission, defining the core values. We actually came back as a management team with the feedback that we'd gotten from our staff. And again, put all this information on the board, look for those common denominators. You can see a lot of the same information. This was us trying to nail down what is that mission statement that best defines kind of why we're here. And so this is the mission statement that we came to serve our customers while providing exceptional financial stewardship. So really two big ideas within this mission statement. One, serving our customers, and two, providing that exceptional financial stewardship. And I pointed this out to the mayor in our meeting a few weeks ago, but this is not a throwaway phrase here, to serve. We could have said something about customer service, but we really felt like we needed to switch those words to point out the fact that we are here to serve our customers. And we really, truly mean and believe that idea of service to our internal customers, service to our external customers, being the residents and businesses of Roswell. The next piece of our presentation and of our work with our strategic planning process got into our core values. The city has an adopted set of core values, and what we did in finance was take these core values and define what they meant for us. And I won't read all the text here, but just to kind of give you one example. So one of the city's core values is accountability. So for us in finance, the way that we define this is that we recognize that accountability begins with me by taking ownership for individual responsibilities and following through to the end. And the finance department will own its responsibility in executing the decisions of city leadership while being accountable for the city's financial systems and infrastructure. So some of the other core values that are adopted by the city include communication.
So talk about the communication, because you use a word in there, which I would say that a lot of us struggle with, right? Internally, in us trying to address and evaluate our organization here, our government, the thing that we're responsible for. Communication is a gigantic challenge. And one of the things that I was so impressed when you were going through this was it's not passive. And one of the things I think that Christine has been here now at the end of your first term, right, and really the end of a very active 15 months of life, is that one of the things that we're asking this organization to do down to the city council level, the mayor level, the department head level, but really everybody, is to find the active ingredient of becoming proactive, not in everything we do, starting first with our communication, understanding that to start solving problems, right, because part of it is an organization, it's very easy to get latent and allow, hey, I'm not going to identify the problem until the problem comes to me. And I think that's one of the things we felt like that was active in this organization was we've got to change that. And it begins with communication. You can't solve a problem until you know you have a problem. And you have to be clear about identifying the problem. And it's to your point, owning the problem to begin to change, to have any opportunity to actually say, hey, we can actively change what that problem is and come up with a different outcome. And so proactively communicate is a gigantic piece. So I was so impressed that you identified that and put that in, say, like, it's not on everybody to come ask me. It's on us to come share with other folks, this is what's going on. And sometimes it's bad news, right? And that's hard in an organization because often you're fearful of, well, I'm going to get clobbered, right? I'm going to get clobbered if I share the bad news. And to create an organization that's free enough to say, no, bad news happens all the time. It's part of life. It's part of any organization. And there's got to be freedom to do that without getting clobbered. Yes, ma'am.
And I just want to add that the finance department under Ryan has already implemented these items, even before zero-based budgeting, where they have come forward and identified duplication of efforts through the departments and opportunities that we might be able to consolidate and become more efficient, saving money or freeing up resources,
Christine,
for other areas.
I was so glad you said that. Exactly. So one of the things that we're like, there's so many pieces to unpack in all this, right? And one is like in any organization, and certainly ours, are the silos that get created, different power bases, basically. And obviously those power bases become protective of their resources, right, and their energy. And so to your point, Christine, exactly, one of the things that's already been identified through zero-based budgeting is redundancy. Like, hey, we've got some redundancy here. How do we reallocate those resources, or in some cases even eliminate those resources? What's the best thing to do for the organization, for the city?
So some of the other core values that have been adopted by the city that we worked on defining include inclusion, innovation, trust, excellence, respect, responsiveness, and transparency.
One of the favorite words used in Roswell. So I want you to talk a little bit about what transparency means and is going to mean.
Sure. Well, for us in finance, we want to make sure that we're providing access to information in a proactive manner, so that it's not the fact that someone has to come digging for this bit of information or that bit of information, but that we provide access and openness in a timely manner to useful information. That can be financial data, but for our internal customers, it can be policies and procedures. That it shouldn't be a secret for how I go about buying something or how I go about adjusting my budget. So for us in finance, it was more about making sure that we had everything out there and available for both our internal and external customers.
So one of the things that we are going to achieve in our communications plan underneath the leadership of Julie Breckbill, who's back there watching us. Hey, Julie, is it part of the communication, right? Obviously, it goes back to transparency, illumination, making everything wide open, and that no greater place is that going to be clear than in the world of our finance, so that everybody will be able to say everything. I hope to have a day where open record requests are no longer needed, because everybody can actually just sign into us and say, I can see everything. Like there are no secrets. Like there are no secrets, including what we're working on. Like there are no secrets. And that everybody feels like, oh my gosh, there's not a hidden agenda. Everybody's like, we're all on the same page of trying to do what we believe is the best thing for Roswell. And that no greater place will that take place than in finance. Like there are no secrets. There's no secret about a cost of a lease, cost of a loan, right? What somebody's pay is. And not to make that open fodder, but that we're not trying to hide anything. And I think that's an important piece to realize, that part of this goal is to completely illuminate the system.
Yes, exactly. So the next step for us was getting into taking our strategic planning process and how that translates into our zero-based budget proposal. So we have our vision of a number one family community, and we talked about our mission statement and how that basically there were two big pieces to that: customer service and fiscal stewardship. So quick definition that we came up with: customer service being, truly serving our customers by making them feel heard, respected, and taken care of. Fiscal stewardship, that we're responsible management of taxpayer resources. And so I wanted to first take a moment to focus on what the customer service aspect of this is and how that translates into a zero-based budgeting process for us in finance. Before I do that, this was we mentioned earlier about how we have internal and external customers, and these are all the different functions that we have within our finance department and how those overlap in terms of who our customer base is. So internally, you can see that when it comes to accounting and budget, mostly we have internal customers. Externally, we have our billing division, payments, and our call center that services our residents and businesses out in the community. And then we have our accounts payable division and procurement that service both internal and external customers. So these are a listing of our ZBB recommendations, and these will probably be included within our strategic planning process as well. And they're all related to customer service. And so the first part of this is implementing a 311 customer service program. This may or may not necessarily be, in the end, a piece of finance, but finance has a lot to contribute to this effort because we actually manage our own call center today. The call center is dedicated to helping residents and businesses calling about utility bills and property tax bills, setting up service, things such as that. The next item deals with finding and implementing a user-friendly customer portal. This would be a portal that makes it easy for our customers to receive and view bills, provide them modern and convenient methods of payment, and providing one single interface for city customers and a centralized location for all payments. The next piece deals with automating our accounts payable function as much as possible. Today we have a process that is somewhat automated, but a lot of manual processes baked into that as well. And we want to take the step to move that to automate as much as possible. The next piece deals with updating our policies, procedures, and processes. And you can see that these letters here, E, B, and I, deal with internal, external, or both. And for this particular thing, this is more of a service for our internal customers to make sure that we have updated modern policies, processes, and procedures so that everyone understands expectations and how to go about whatever task they're involved with.
Well, one of the things when you're talking about zero-based budgeting, everybody assumes it's just about money, right? And I probably hopefully did a decent introduction in the beginning. It's not just about money, right? Ultimately, it's about how you best use your money, but it's not just about the spending of the money. There's a lot of ways to get to that. And one of these things that you have identified along with some of your colleagues, right, for example, is how many different types of software, for example, have we learned that we use in the city of Roswell?
Countless. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but there's a lot.
I think it's close to 150, right? And so you think about that, and there's a lot of reasons. And you said something to me over several times over the past year. You've said something. Was it you always said to me that how it's kind of historically been?
That the mindset has been that we make the best with what we have.
To make the best with what we have, which sounds good. We make do. The problem is often making do is that when you are cheap, right, you end up penalizing the output. And so sometimes, you don't see the forest for the trees in that adage, right? But if you don't spend the appropriate amount of money to solve for your problems and you make do, then you end up causing other problems, which end up causing more problems to more processes and make you more inefficient and make you less able to do what you feel like is your mission, i.e. the serve. And that for me is a perfect example of one of the many things like, for example, like we found out in payroll. We have an astounding amount of employees, right, for a very large city, which is what we are. And we've discovered that we're still doing payroll by hand. Now, anybody in the private world probably would say, if they said, you guys are doing what? In 2023, you're still doing payroll. So perfect example, there's so many pieces. And then there's some very sophisticated pieces, right, that have to be updated and changed. And so that the city, the internal customers, are talking to one another in a much more efficient manner and not siloed. For example, it sounds good in theory if they're entrepreneurial agencies, which they're not, to say, you know what, Parks and Rec will operate as an independent function. Finance will operate as an independent function. Police will operate as an independent function. EPW will operate as an independent function. And they'll each have their own siloed resources. But what we keep finding is that there's not only a poor allocation of resources, but there's poor functionality in terms of the city to be able to interact. And a lot of this gets driven home from the finance side. And while you're smack in the middle of all of this.
Yes, and you'll see in just a moment, too. I mean, there's a big recommendation about making sure that we have the right software and system to best support our departments and the systems that they need to operate their core functions as well. Internal customer training, again, this gets to making sure that everyone is aware of our policies, procedures, and processes. Trying to go outside the box a little bit and putting together process maps, videos, user guides that will help our internal customers do their job to the best of their abilities. The next and last piece on this section deals with key performance indicators and service level agreements. So we don't necessarily have these in place today, and we would like to make better use of this to make sure to be able to measure ourselves and make sure that we're achieving what we want to achieve, what we're supposed to be achieving, and that we can provide reasonable upfront expectations for our customers in terms of what they can expect from us in terms of the service they receive from the finance department. So getting back to our vision of number one family community, the next piece I wanted to deal with was fiscal stewardship. So what are the recommendations that we have that speak to responsible management of taxpayer resources? Real quick, I wanted to define what fiscal stewardship meant to some of the various divisions within our department. So I'll take these first two. Accounting. So we want to make sure that we're, timely reconciliation of financial data. We have policies to ensure that there are proper controls and fraud prevention in place, that we're effectively managing our assets. In terms of our budget staff, we want quality analysis to achieve accurate forecasts, ensure that spending stays within budgetary constraints, and that we have effective and forward-thinking fiscal planning. Our accounts payable division, we want efficient processes, convenient and safe payment methods for our customers and vendors. We want cost recovery. We want to take advantage of rebates and discounts to make sure that we're making the best out of those opportunities that are available to us. Billing and payments, we want accurate and efficient billing process, quick and convenient payment methods for our customers, full revenue recovery, efficient processing and deposit of these funds. And then finally, with our purchasing division, overall, we want to make sure that our purchasing division is meeting the needs of the city and achieving the best value with those taxpayer resources.
Yes, best. Purchasing, we've talked a lot about in the last year, and it's been criticized a great deal, I think, because of past practices and of past decisions by elected to continue to narrow down the scope and tighten it. And it's interesting, there's like meeting the needs of the city at the best value. Let me give you an example. There are so many places where we are missing the boat. Transportation is a perfect example. Something that's near and dear to 65% of the city of Roswell, the 42 square miles, are single-family homes, subdivisions. And there's basically a plan on the repavement plan. And historically, it's been about 20 years. And whether or not that gets done or not, basically based upon the juxtaposition of what the electeds vote on to approve for the budgetary process. But inside of that, through the purchasing process, what's interesting is thinking that we were smart and focusing on price, we did not build the flexibility for the expert, right? The transportation director, like in our current case, our new transportation director, Jeff Little, or like in your case as an expert, to say, all right, what are all the pieces to the equation that I need to define with potential vendors that are not just the price? Because if I go out there in the marketplace and say, this is just about price, I'm going to get pricing that's not going to reflect a whole set of criteria. They're going to end up hurting the value and the timing and the efficiency and the quality of what I'm trying to achieve. Just another little piece. And so this one's a scary one, and it's a really easy to do in an organization where the organization, and you get direction from electeds to say, hey, we got to have the best price. And that's easy to say. It's not always about the best price. It's about what is the best deliverable of service for the amount of money that you spend for what you want to achieve. And it's one of the things that I think is so crucial that we redefine in this, because one, we took real authority away from our organization to say, hey, you can't spend $3,435 without getting approval of elected mayor and council, with council. But we already approved it in the budget. And then we already approved it based upon a piece that we said, hey, we've approved a $3 million project out here to re-improve and reinvigorate the pathway from City Hall to Canton Street, right? Already done. Part of the budgetary process, went through committee, got elected, got done at the dais, da-da-da-da. But the process today now comes back, every one of those dollars, which everybody thinks, oh, you're being fiscally sound. You're being fiscally prudent. And I would argue that as a perfect example is, no, you're continuing to analyze and scrutinize something that's not providing value. You're putting limitations on the people who need to be executing that in an expeditious manner, and you're slowing it down, which what people are often critical and rightly critical about government is you move too slow. And so goes back to is, do you believe that your elected officials are working your best behalf? That they are like fellow residents, or are they trying to screw you? And I think that's an important narrative that's part of the things that needs to be repositioned in the city. And I say the same thing that we've been working on trying to reposition with the city elected leaders and the quote-unquote staff, which I'm going to use the word talent in our city, which is, do I trust you to do the right thing if I give you clarity on what the mission is? And part of that is, if I do, then I need to empower you with the tools to go do that and not say, hey, come check on me. Come check with me to get my approval every time you spend $3,433. And that's part of this, which you're going to see that narrative get unpacked, because I truly believe that's in the best interest of the city of Roswell as an organization, and I truly believe it's in the best interest of my fellow residents.
If I can just recap what the point being, that under purchasing, most of the rules are self-imposed.
Yeah.
I mean, we have state laws
Yes.
that we need to comply to as a government organization, and outside of those state laws, everything else is imposed by our own institution on ourselves. So we're tripping over ourselves to be able to produce the best deliverable for our residents.
One example, right? This little city of 100,000 people, basically, right, keeps creating more policies and more obfuscation of what we really want. And that's, again, another part of the whole zero-based budgeting process, is to create clarity and then to use the word empowerment of action, so that the people who are responsible for executing the policy given by the mayor and council can go do the job. And because I know as a resident, and I'm still frustrated as a mayor, right, at the speed of which we move, because the apparatus has too many impediments. Has too many impediments for you to make decisions, has too many impediments for Julie to make decisions, has too many impediments for the city administrator to make decisions. If we give you clarity on what the mission is, then we should be able to go execute it, and execute it in an expeditious manner. And that's kind of what we're after with zero-based budgeting. Like, there's another reason, like this is a transformation. This is a revolution internally, so we can execute. So, but I just, there's a lot of little things, but I just wanted to bring that up.
But Jane agrees that
It is a revolution.
So out of that fiscal stewardship idea, we had some recommendations related to zero-based budgeting. And we talked a little bit about this already, but one of these was to find and implement a more effective financial management system. So we want to be able to have a financial management system that can easily interface with other systems within our city. They're talking to each other. These other departments that have core businesses, that they can find the system that works best for them, but that system also can work with our system to make sure that we're all on the same page. We also are looking to find and implement a software for more efficient investment management and cash flow analysis. So this is, again, goes back to fiscal stewardship. Those funds that we are having and allocating for future expenses, while we have them, we want to make sure we're maximizing those funds and earning a reasonable rate of return for those funds for the benefit of our residents. And then we've talked about this already, but again, there's a fiscal stewardship component to this, and that is automating our accounts payable process. We also are looking to fully transition our investment portfolio to our investment advisor. So this is something that the city is new to the city. Within the last couple of years, the city had never before had an investment advisory firm to manage the city's investment portfolio. And a couple of years ago, we worked with the mayor and council and got permission to bring on an investment advisor, someone who is paying attention to this on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis on our behalf, to make sure that we are, again, complying with our investment policy, complying with state law, but that we're maximizing the funds that we have available to, again, benefit our residents. And so we've already transitioned a small piece of that portfolio. We want to move the remaining piece of that portfolio over for their management. And again, still under the purview of the city, still being reviewed and managed by us, but we want that expertise of that outside firm as well. We talked about policies a little bit, but we want to make sure that we have updated financial policies with mayor and council guidance. As part of zero-based budgeting this year, we're also looking at creating some new city funds. And by funds, we mean like ways of tracking our money for a particular purpose. For instance, our largest fund is the general fund. But we are looking to create several new funds that will help us more effectively manage spending on certain key city functions. This includes IT services, facility maintenance, as well as setting aside funding on an annual basis for future replacement of large capital assets. That would be something that's new to the city, and we're on track to make this part of the FY2024 budget. A few other things that we wanted to point out to the mayor and council, and I titled this a little bit a walk on the radical side. It's a little more outside the box than what we've talked about already. But ideas that we came up with in this review process. One, the city spends quite a bit of money today on sending bills out to our customers. And we would like to make digital bills the default option, not taking away paper bills entirely, but making digital bills the default option simply because of the savings to the city. Those funds can be then reused for some other higher priority purpose. But just to give you an idea, so in our last fiscal year, the city spent about $168,000 on printing and postage. That's with about 40% of our bills today are already being sent digitally, saving the city about $74,000 each year. So we've come a long way, but we think we have a ways to go and could really benefit the city by making this change. We would also like to find space in City Hall to create a centralized payment counter to better serve our customers. We've had many conversations about making City Hall more customer focused, more resident focused, and how we're structured and how we're set up here in City Hall. Part of that would be to create an area that customers who want to come in have easy access and it's a way for us to provide better customer service to those customers by providing an easier way for them to make those payments in person if they so choose. We have lots of online options available today, but for those that like to come in person, we want to make that as easy as possible. The last item here goes to exploring potential opportunities to utilize the knowledge and expertise of our city's billing staff to provide similar services to other partners. So today, we have a group of individuals within our finance department that bill our utility services on a monthly basis and our property taxes on an annual basis. And we are looking at opportunities to provide those services in other areas that might benefit our city organization. And then finally, we wanted to talk about the option of implementing a shared services approach for the finance function within the city organization. And what this means is basically the finance department would have finance staff within each department to provide that finance function within each of those departments in the city. So essentially what it gets you to is allowing those operating departments, recreation parks, for example, allowing those operating departments to focus on their core business function and allow us as the finance staff and the ones with the finance expertise to manage the financial pieces of their department so they can focus on providing the service that they need to provide to our residents and businesses.
And if I can just add to that, probably our residents may not know, and I know the more recent electeds weren't aware that our departments, like Rec and Parks, were managing their own finance, basically have their own finance division. So this is a really great suggestion and something as a result of zero-based budgeting that we were able to identify and see the redundancy and hopefully be able to consolidate that and become more efficient.
And Mayor, that's the presentation. So...
So, Christine, anything you want to add to that?
I just want to add that I've had the opportunity to join Ryan and his team in their monthly meetings, and they have an incredible pool of talent, as we discussed, and folks that are really, really working very hard and want to do the right thing for the residents. So it's very, very exciting that these things are starting to come together, and these are areas that we haven't addressed as a city ever or in many, many, many years. So very, very exciting things happening.
Thank you, Director Luckett.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pro Tem Christine Hall.
And thank you, Mayor.
Well, I just, the point of all this, and I know for some of you it might be a snooze fest. For me, this is what we do. I find this like crazy exciting because this is where the rubber meets the road of making a difference in your life, in your family's life, in my family's life. And this is really what, when we talk about being transformational, it may seem like a snooze fest, but this is what we do. And I wanted to give you a little glimpse into the process and what's happening and how it's going to radically change how this agency, how this organization, the city of Roswell government works and serves you. And I want to let you know that there's incredible passion, an incredible commitment, incredible energy, incredible professionalism from great people like our finance director, Ryan Luckett, and from our pro tem of the mayor, Councilmember Christine Hall. So I appreciate y'all. I hope you enjoyed. This is 15 minutes by my time. Not really. But I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much. God bless you. God bless this great country, and God bless the city of Roswell. We'll see you later.